Imagine this. You spend 7 years keeping everyone else's life running. You cover the mortgage, pay the bills, rescue the credit cards, fund the creative projects, and tell yourself it's what a good daughter does. But then one night, at a simple Sunday dinner, your own family laughs at you. Not a soft laugh, a sharp one. A laugh that tells you they don't see your sacrifice, your exhaustion, your loneliness. They only see what you give. And when your sister smirks across the table and jokes about your empty life, something inside you doesn't break. It freezes, because in that moment, you finally understand what you've been to them all these years. Not a daughter, not a sister, just the person who pays. So you stand up, walk out, shut every payment down, and the silence that follows isn't peace. It's the sound of their world falling apart without you funding it. What happens next? The calls, the rage, the collapse, and the fraud you uncover with your own name forged on a $50,000 loan isn't a family falling apart, it's the truth finally surfacing. Because when you stop being the one they depend on, they don't apologize. They attack. They twist the story. They turn you into the villain for choosing yourself. But this time, I wasn't the one who shattered. They were. So stay till the end, because this isn't a story about anger. It's about awakening, about what happens when a woman finally shuts the door on the people who were never going to love her the way they loved her money. And before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from, because by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why I had to walk out of that house and never go back again. My name is Rachel Myers, and before I tell you anything else, I need to tell you what it feels like to stand in a room full of your own family and suddenly realize, bone deep, breath-stealing, world-tilting, realize that they don't see you as a person at all. They see you as a resource, a convenience, a never-ending well they can dip their cups into. And the day you stop pouring, they will look at you like you've betrayed them. Even though they were the ones killing you slowly, that realization didn't come softly. It hit me on a Sunday evening in Tacoma, with the smell of roast chicken in the air and candles flickering on the dining table I had paid for my whole life. I thought love was duty. I thought being the good daughter meant setting myself on fire so everyone else could stay warm. But that night, something inside me didn't just crack. It froze. I always imagined the moment my life changed would be something noble or tragic or at least meaningful, like a car accident or a breakup or some life-altering career fiasco, not a dinner. Not my sister smirking at me across a table I grew up eating at. Not my mother laughing in that thin, high-pitched chime she uses when she wants people to think everything is fine. But here we are. I was 32 years old, sitting at my parents' dining table on a Sunday evening, staring at a roast I had paid for, in a house I had practically funded on my own, with a family who treated me like a punchline. And when Alyssa lifted her wine glass and threw that jab, "Where's your husband and kids, Rachel?" "Oh, right, you don't have any." I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, like a door closing in a long hallway. I didn't react at first. I just looked at her. My sister Alyssa, the creative one, that's what my parents called her. The free spirit, the dreamer. And me, the responsible one, the practical one, the one who had it all together. What they never said out loud but always implied was that I was the one expected to pay for the creative one to clean up after the dreamer. My family didn't clap when I got into grad school. They didn't really blink when I landed my job as a UX researcher in Seattle, but they celebrated every hobby Alyssa ever flirted with for 3 months: watercolor painting, yoga teacher training, the online boutique that never made $1. Every new obsession was treated like a potential breakthrough, and I was expected, no, required, to financially support it. But I never said no. I grew up thinking I wasn't allowed to. The truth is, for years I had believed I was protecting my family, that my success meant nothing unless I shared it with them. And that night, when Alyssa took that sip of wine and smirked at me, she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was saying what they all believed. Rachel is safe to mock because Rachel will never leave. Rachel will never stop paying. Rachel is ours. That hurt more than the insult. That belief that I belonged to them. I looked at my father, Douglas, whose hours at the shipping yard had been temporarily cut 7 years ago. He chuckled into his napkin like Alyssa's jab had been cute, harmless. I looked at my mother, Karen, who laughed too, because she always laughed when my father did. That was their rhythm. Dad leads, Mom follows. And me? I was the silent middle child, except there was no other child except Alyssa. But emotionally, that's what I was. The quiet one, the responsible one, the reliable one who never asked for anything, because any time I did, I was met with a sigh, or a guilt trip, or a reminder of how hard they had it. But something shifted in me that night. You know the kind of cold that doesn't start at your skin but somewhere deeper, like behind your ribs? That's what flooded me. And when I smiled at Alyssa, it wasn't nice. It wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile you give someone before you turn your back on them forever. "Where's your money, Alyssa?" I asked softly. The laughter died so quickly the room actually felt quieter. It wasn't the end of the dinner, it was the beginning of the end. But let me back up, because to understand why that moment mattered, you have to understand my life before it. The life that looked calm on the surface, but was bleeding underneath my apartment in Capitol Hill, was clean, organized, minimal. The kind of place people assume means you're stable. My life looked curated, like an Instagram feed with all the clutter cropped out. I had a great skyline view, a couch from West Elm, a sleek coffee machine that made perfect espresso every morning. And from the outside, I looked like a woman who had figured life out inside. I was exhausted, not from work, not from being single, not from life being too hard, from everyone else using me as their life support. When I got my first real job at 25, making more money than anyone in my family had ever made, I felt proud. I felt grateful. I wanted to give back. That's how it started. Dad asked for help with the mortgage. "Just for a few months, sweetheart. Just until I get back on my feet." I said yes because, what else do you say when your dad admits he's struggling? Then Mom needed help with the gas bill, then groceries, then a water heater, then Dad's credit card, then both credit cards, then Alyssa needed money for her online boutique, then her laptop, then her inventory, then her car insurance, then her groceries, then her phone bill. Every time I said yes, it got easier for them to ask and harder for me to imagine saying no. Slowly, month by month, they weren't asking anymore. They were expecting. They'd plan things, dinners out, shopping trips, pet supplies, hobby equipment, before even checking their bank accounts because they knew they'd just text me later to help them out. They never asked, "Are you okay? Can you afford this? Do you have goals you're working toward?" No one ever asked what I wanted, not once, but I was raised to be good, to be obedient, to be responsible. They never said those words out loud, but the message was in everything they did. When Alyssa forgot her lunch, I gave her mine. When she missed a class, I tutored her. When she broke something, I cleaned it up. When she cried, I was told to be patient because she was sensitive. I learned early that my needs were optional. So here I was at 32, paying for a house I didn't own, for bills I didn't create, for debts I didn't incur, for a sister who wasn't trying, for parents who weren't grateful. And I told myself that's what love looks like. Until that Sunday dinner. Until that laugh. That laugh snapped something the way a quiet tree branch snaps under too much weight. Suddenly I wasn't looking at them as a daughter. I was looking at them as a person who had been exploited, who had been robbed, who had been treated like an endless supply instead of a human being. I thought I would cry on the drive home from Tacoma that night. That's what I always did. Anytime my family hurt me, anytime they took too much, I swallowed it down and cried alone until it passed. But that night, I didn't cry. Not one tear. I was cold, calculating. My brain became a machine. I started doing math in my head. How much had I paid? The mortgage, 84 payments of $1,850. The credit cards, 5 years of covering $1,200 or more per month. Alyssa, a bottomless pit, thousands for her business, hundreds per month for her bills, her car, her insurance, my parents' emergencies, their grocery runs, their takeout meals. their random little indulgences that they called treats. The total number that formed in my head made my stomach twist. Over $250,000. Gone. Money I earned, money I sacrificed for, money I could have used for a home, a dog, a vacation, a degree, a life. Money I spent because I thought love meant emptying myself. The drive home felt like shedding skin. Something old died on that highway, in the rain, with the rhythm of the windshield wipers steadying my heartbeat. The weak, obedient, guilty version of me, the version that thought I owed them my life, was gone by the time I hit SeaTac. I walked into my apartment, rain still on my jacket, and did something I'd never dared to do. I stopped the payments. All of them. Every recurring bill I paid for them, I canceled. Every line on the family phone plan, I transferred. Every automatic transfer, I shut off. Every Venmo request, I blocked. It felt violent. It felt final. It felt like pulling my own life out of their hands. For the first time since I was a teenager, I claimed something as mine. My money, my future, my breath. And that was only the beginning. Because the real battle wasn't them screaming at me. It wasn't them calling me ungrateful. It wasn't even them blaming me for their downfall. The real battle was discovering what they did to my name, what they did behind my back, what they forged, the truth that turned this whole situation from emotional betrayal into a full-blown crime. But that comes later. For now, just know this. By the time I walked into their house 2 weeks later, after their calls and their guilt and their pressure, I didn't come as the daughter they knew. I came as the woman they made. I came with evidence. I came with power. I came with the truth. And I came ready to end an entire family system with one conversation. And trust me, they never saw it coming. I woke up the next morning expecting the familiar heaviness, that Monday morning ache that felt like someone had placed a brick on my chest during the night. For 7 years, Monday had meant one thing: earn money fast enough to plug the holes my family kept drilling into the bottom of my life. But that Monday felt strangely blank, like someone had erased a weight I'd carried so long I didn't even remember what it was like to stand upright. I made coffee the expensive way, the way I usually saved for weekends. Fresh beans, a slow pour, that ritualistic swirl. My apartment felt too quiet, but not in the way that made me lonely. More like the quiet in your ears after you've taken off a pair of heavy headphones, like the absence of noise was its own kind of freedom. I got ready, put on my work clothes, tied my hair back, and walked out the door into crisp Seattle air. It felt clean. It felt like a world I belonged to again. I wasn't smiling, but something inside me wasn't clenched anymore. My phone was on silent in my handbag. It was only a matter of time. I knew that. I knew the moment they realized the money wasn't coming, everything would explode. But I wanted to face it at work, not alone on my couch. Work was order. Work was logic. Work was one of the only spaces where people respected me. It didn't take long. I was sitting in a conference room discussing a new checkout flow. My project manager was talking about friction points. The designer was complaining about button placement. I was taking neat, color-coded notes when my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. For a moment, I felt the old reflex, the panic, the guilt, the reflexive need to answer, fix, soothe. But I pushed it down. It wasn't my emergency. Not anymore. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway with my laptop still tucked under my arm. I pulled out my phone and saw 3 texts. Mom. Sweetheart, the mortgage didn't clear. Did you forget? Call me. Forget? As if forgetting was even possible, as if the payment wasn't a constant ghost in my mind. I slid the phone back into my pocket and rejoined the meeting. It buzzed again 30 minutes later. Dad, you forgot the transfer again. The bank called me. Again. As if it was routine. As if I was an employee missing a scheduled task. I didn't answer. At 12:15, Alyssa chimed in. Alyssa. Hey, can you Venmo me rent? Landlord is bugging me. Just like that. Like Sunday night never happened. Like she hadn't mocked me. Like she hadn't laughed at me. Like she wasn't a grown woman depending on me to live like a teenager. I turned my phone face down and finished the workday with a quiet determination not to give in. Every buzz after that was a reminder of the life I was intentionally walking away from. When I finally drove home, my phone lit up like a fireworks show. 19 missed calls, 12 from Mom, 5 from Dad, 2 from Alyssa. The texts had changed. The sweetness was gone. The guilt was sharpening. Mom, this isn't funny. We got an overdraft fee. Fix this. Mom, are you punishing us for what Alyssa said? She didn't mean it. You're being dramatic. Dad, call me now, Alyssa. Cow. Alyssa, my landlord says I have 3 days. This is your fault. Every message felt like another stone thrown at a window that had already cracked years ago. When I sat on my couch and pressed play on the first voicemail, my hands were steady. Steadier than they had ever been listening to my mother cry. Mom's voice filled the room like smoke, thick and suffocating. Rachel, how could you do this to us? We're your family. After everything we've done for you. I paused it. The irony almost made me laugh. Everything they'd done for me? They fed me. They sheltered me. They did what every parent is supposed to do. Nothing extraordinary, nothing magical, nothing even bare minimum extraordinary. But to them, I owed them my life. I listened to the rest anyway. Her crying turned into pleading, pleading turned into manipulation, manipulation into accusation. We raised you, we loved you, we depended on you, you owe us. Owe. That word dug into my chest. Dad's voicemail was harsher. You think this is a game? You think you can turn off your responsibilities? You are embarrassing me. Be an adult and fix what you broke. I didn't break anything. I had just stopped cleaning up their messes. Then Alyssa's voicemail. You ruined my life. I only have 3 days. You've always been jealous of me. You have everything. Your stupid fancy job, your stupid apartment, and I have nothing because of you. I hate you. Her voice wasn't sad. It was furious, blaming. Like her being a failure was my personal vendetta. I saved all of them, and I kept saving them for days. Every call, every voicemail, every text, every attack. Not because I wanted revenge, but because something inside me whispered, they will turn this around on you. They will twist the story. Protect yourself. The calls slowed by the 4th day. The texts turned sparse. The desperation faded into silence. Not peaceful silence, strategic silence. The kind you hear when a predator steps back, not because it's retreating, but because it's circling. I knew them too well. Yelling didn't work, guilt didn't work, anger didn't work. So now they were strategizing. That silence scared me more than the screaming. But something else was happening in that quiet too. I was coming back to life. I went to the Ballard Farmers Market. I bought flowers. I bought cheese. I'd never let myself splurge on. I spent $20 on myself and felt like I was doing something illegal. I moved $2,000 into my savings and stared at the number like it was a miracle. Is this what it feels like, I wondered? To have a future? That's when my phone buzzed again. Dad, come home Sunday, we need to talk. Not a request, a command. Come home. Like I was still theirs. Like I was a child being summoned to answer for my disobedience. For a split second, I felt the old instinct rise to get in the car, to drive down the I-5, to fix things. But then I remembered the roast chicken, the laughter, the way they mocked the life they were draining, so I typed one word. What time? His reply came instantly. 2 p.m., of course. Set like a meeting, like a disciplinary hearing. Fine, I whispered to myself. Let's talk. Except I wasn't going for closure. I wasn't going for reconciliation. I wasn't going to give in. I was going to end it. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rehearse speeches. I didn't replay childhood memories. I opened my filing cabinet, and I started gathering evidence. Mortgage statements, bank transfers, paid bills, every dollar I had poured into their lives. And then I found something I didn't expect, a loan document. A $50,000 home equity loan from 3 years ago, with my name, with my information, with my signature. Except, it wasn't my signature. I had never seen that paper, never agreed to that loan, never signed it. My hands went cold. My father hadn't just used me. He hadn't just drained me. He had impersonated me. He had committed felony fraud. My life, my legal identity, was tied to a debt I didn't know existed. The betrayal was so sharp it actually took my breath away. The woman who sat on that floor with papers spread around her wasn't the same woman who had driven home from Tacoma that night. She was colder, sharper, focused. I printed everything. Every transfer, every statement, every Venmo record, every bill, every voicemail. 7 years of being a silent provider laid out in black ink. This wasn't a family issue anymore. This was a case file. This was a crime, and I wasn't going to be their victim anymore. I was going to be their reckoning. When I walked into their house that Sunday at 2 p.m., I wasn't their daughter. I was the woman holding every receipt they never imagined I would collect, and they were about to face the truth for the first time in their lives. I parked a block away from the house I had spent 7 years funding. I didn't pull into the driveway, not because I was afraid of being blocked in, but because something in me needed to claim my distance. I wasn't stepping into my childhood home, I was stepping into a crime scene. The porch railing paint was peeling, something I had once paid $500 to fix. The irony hit me like a soft punch. They had let it rot again, just like everything else I had ever tried to patch. I stood at the front door with my hand on my old key, but my fingers froze. No. I wasn't walking into this house like someone who belonged here. I wasn't part of this system anymore. I wasn't theirs. I pulled my hand back and rang the doorbell. The chime inside echoed. I heard hurried footsteps. The door swung open, and there was my mother, Karen, in an old floral apron, her eyes red, her cheeks blotchy. She looked like she had been crying for hours. The moment she saw me, her whole face buckled. Rachel. "Oh, honey, you came," she whispered, like she was greeting a lost child who had finally returned home. She reached forward to hug me. I took one step back. Just one. But it was enough. Her arms dropped. Something in her expression hardened, brittle and wounded. "Well, come in," she said, her voice small and offended. She turned and walked toward the dining room. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of stale coffee and rose air freshener hitting me like a ghost from childhood. But I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt distance. I felt like a stranger walking through a museum of a life I no longer lived. The dining room was exactly the way I expected it to be, and yet nothing like I remembered. My father sat at the head of the table like a judge, hands clasped, shoulders squared, chin lifted in false authority. His Sunday best polo shirt, the one I had bought him, was stretched tight over his stomach. He looked at me like a disappointed principal, like I was the one who had broken rules. Alyssa wasn't at the table. She was on the living room couch, the 2 rooms connected without a wall, scrolling on her phone with loud taps, just to make sure I knew she wasn't intimidated. Her jaw was tight, her hair messy. Her face was the color of anger. My mother stood near the sideboard, refolding napkins that were already folded. Her hands trembled each time she smoothed the fabric, crease after crease after crease. I didn't sit. I placed my bag on the floor beside me and stood at the end of the table, my position deliberate. I wasn't staying long. I wasn't breaking bread. I wasn't here to be soothed or scolded. The silence was heavy, familiar but unfamiliar at the same time. For years I had filled silence with apologies. Now I let it sit. My father cleared his throat. "Well," he said slowly, "you're here." I waited. "You've caused your mother a lot of pain," he continued, the disappointment dripping like oil. "We've been worried sick. You vanish for weeks. You don't answer our calls. You don't return messages. After everything we've done for you, this is how you behave?" I kept my eyes on him, steady, calm. "I didn't disappear, Dad," I said. "I just stopped paying your bills." My mother gasped softly. Alyssa's scrolling finger froze in midair. My father leaned forward. "You think this is funny?" he asked. "You think cutting us off is a joke? Your sister was almost evicted." "Yes," I said, "and she's 28. A flicker of embarrassment ran across Alyssa's face, but she swallowed it with a glare. "She's trying," my mother snapped. Her business is a hobby I've been financing for years," I said. "It doesn't make money. It costs money. My money." "Don't you dare talk to her like that," Mom shouted, voice breaking. Alyssa slammed her phone onto the couch. "Here we go. This is all because I made one stupid joke? That's what this is about? You're ruining our lives over one joke?" "You didn't make a joke," I said, turning toward her. "You said what all of you think, that my life is a failure, that I'm just good for carrying everyone." "That's not true," my mother cried. "We appreciate everything you've done." "No, you don't," I said quietly. "Appreciation is gratitude. Appreciation is respect. You used me, and you laughed at me for being empty because of you." My father slammed his palm on the table. "Enough," he barked. "You're being dramatic. We are a family. Families support each other. You have a good job. You have money. We have had a hard time. You're supposed to help." "I did help," I said, "for 7 years. That's not help anymore. That's you living off me." My father straightened, trying to regain control. "We are going to sit down, talk this through, and you're going to turn those payments back on, then we're going to move forward." I smiled, but the smile wasn't warm. "No," I said. He blinked. Hard. "No?" he repeated like the word confused him. "No," I said again. Simple. Final. He flushed red. "Rachel, this is not you. You're not this cold, vindictive person." "You don't know me," I said. "You only know what I can give you." "What did you come here for then?" Alyssa snapped. "To lecture us? To show off?" "No," I said, and then I reached into my bag. I took out the black folder. When the folder hit the table, the sound echoed in the room like a gavel hitting wood. My father's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before: fear. "I'm not here to talk about feelings," I said, opening the folder. "I'm here to talk about facts." My mother froze. Alyssa stepped closer. My father leaned back in his chair. I took out the first paper and slid it across the table. The polished wood reflected the ink clearly. His face drained when he saw it. The home equity loan agreement. The forged signature. "Dad," I said, looking him in the eyes, "this is a felony." My mother gasped so loudly it echoed. What is that?" she whispered. My father lifted the paper with trembling hands. This is nothing," he stammered. This is a misunderstanding. We needed the money for the roof." I shook my head. "No, it's not a misunderstanding, and the bank doesn't think it is either." His eyes shot up at me in panic. I let it land. "You forged my name," I said. "You committed fraud in my name, on a $50,000 loan. My name, my credit, my future." My mother stumbled back into a chair. No, Douglas. Tell her she's wrong. Tell her." My father couldn't look at her. Or at me. I kept going. I laid out 7 years of payments, mortgage statements, credit card balances, bank transfers, paper after paper, evidence after evidence, each one a brick on the table. "You wanted to talk?" I said softly. "So let's really talk." I looked at Alyssa next. I slid the thick stack of Venmo receipts toward her. Her groceries, her rent, her broken-down car, her failed business supplies, her nails, her dinners, her emergencies. "This is your life," I said, "and I paid for all of it." Alyssa's mouth opened and closed like she was drowning on air. You're destroying us," she whispered. "You're selfish. This is extreme." "No," I said. "Extreme was expecting me to fund your entire lives." My father tried again. "Rachel, stop this, right now. You are crossing a line." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "No, Dad," I said. "You crossed the line 3 years ago when you forged my name." The silence afterward was brutal. They weren't breathing. Neither was I. Finally, I spoke. "I hired a lawyer," I said. My father flinched like I had slapped him. "A fraud attorney," I continued. "Her name is Melissa Grant, And she has copies of everything you see here, plus all the voicemails where you threatened me, all the texts, all the evidence." My mother burst into tears, high-pitched, panicked sobs that filled the entire house. Alyssa's face turned ghost white. My father looked like he'd been dropped into ice water. I stood taller. "You want to talk about responsibility?" I said. "Here it is." I laid out the terms. "You have 30 days. You will go to the bank. You will confess. You will have my name removed from every loan and every obligation tied to this house. You will sign a legal agreement drafted by my lawyer stating you will never ask me for money again. Ever." My father swallowed hard. "Rachel, you're my daughter." "And you forged my name," I said, "so here's your final option." They all froze. "If you don't fix this in 30 days, Melissa will file the case with the prosecutor's office. You will be charged with felony fraud." "No!" my mother screamed, collapsing forward. "Rachel, you can't do this. He's your father. We're your family." "No," I said quietly. "You were my family, but you became something else." Alyssa pointed at me, shaking. "You're a monster." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm a free monster." I picked up my folder, every eye followed my movement like I was holding a weapon, and maybe I was. I turned toward the door but stopped with my hand on the knob. I looked back at the house one last time. "This house stands because of me," I said. "I paid for your stability, your comfort, your safety for 7 years, and now it's your turn." Then I walked out. My mother screamed my name from the doorway, but I didn't stop. I didn't turn, I didn't break. I drove away from the house I had funded, the people I had carried, the life that had drained me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was finally walking home. 2 weeks. That was all it took for everything to change. Not 7 years, not 7 months, just 14 days. The silence came first. After the confrontation in Tacoma, after I walked out of that house with my evidence folder still warm in my hands, my phone fell completely quiet. Not the angry buzzing from the days before, not the guilt-filled texts, not the rage, not the dramatic voicemails, nothing. And the silence wasn't peaceful. It felt like the air before a tornado touches down, that eerie, unnatural stillness in the world that tells you something big is about to hit. It felt like they were holding their breath, like they were still in shock, like they were trying to decide whether I was bluffing, whether their old tactics would still work, whether the daughter they'd controlled for decades was still somewhere inside the woman who had put a felony charge on the table. Every night I lay in bed with my phone on my nightstand, screen down, waiting for a message that never came, waiting for the explosion. It didn't come the next day, or the one after that, or the one after that. Instead, something strange happened. My life got quiet. Not lonely. Not empty. Just quiet. I woke up earlier than usual. I made coffee without rushing. I sat on my couch and watched the morning light spill across my apartment floor. I didn't check my bank account with dread. I didn't brace myself every time my phone vibrated. I didn't feel that tight pressure in my chest that I'd lived with for so long. I assumed it was part of my body. It wasn't. It had just been them. I didn't know how to exist without that heaviness, but every day felt like learning to walk again. I went to work, I sat in meetings, I researched user behavior for new prototypes, I talked to coworkers about lunch spots and weekend plans, and for the first time since my 20s, I wasn't silently calculating how much of my paycheck would be drained the second it hit my account. Every dollar felt like mine. I kept saving the voicemails, though. Every message, every text. I didn't know why at first, only that something in me knew better than to delete them. I grew up in that house. I knew how quickly blame shifted, how smoothly they rewrote history. I wasn't letting them rewrite this one. Then, on the morning of the 14th day, when I was stirring milk into my coffee and checking my email, my phone rang. The name on the screen wasn't my mother, father, or sister. It was Melissa Grant, my lawyer. The moment I saw her name, my heart froze mid-beat. This was it. I ducked into an unused conference room at work, shut the glass door behind me, and answered. "Rachel," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I have an update for you." I sat down slowly. "Okay. What happened?" "It's done," 2 words, 2 syllables, and my entire world shifted. She continued, "Your father went to the bank yesterday. He spoke to the fraud department. He signed a full confession." A sound left my body. Not a cry, not a laugh, just a release, a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "He admitted everything," Melissa said. "He acknowledged that he forged your signature on the home equity loan, that he opened the account without your knowledge, and that you had no involvement whatsoever." My throat tightened. My vision blurred. "So, what now?" I whispered. "Well," Melissa said, flipping through her papers, "the bank has officially removed your name from the loan effective immediately. It will no longer appear on your credit report. You are fully cleared." A warmth rushed through me, a freedom so foreign it almost hurt. "Thank you," I whispered. "God, thank you." "There's more," she said. I held my breath again. "As a result of his confession, the bank has frozen your parents' accounts. They're conducting a full review, and they've called the entire loan due." "What does that mean?" "It means they want the $50,000 repaid immediately," she said gently, "and your parents can't pay it." My pulse thudded. "So they're going to lose the house," she finished. Lose the house. The house I had been carrying on my back for 7 years, the house I paid for, the house I saved from foreclosure more than once, the house they mocked me in. I didn't speak. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt quiet. "So what now?" I finally asked. "We're filing the quitclaim deed today," Melissa said. "Your father has already agreed to sign it. You'll be fully removed from the mortgage by the end of the week. You will be legally disconnected from that property forever." Forever. That word felt like cool rain on sunburned skin. "Rachel," she added, "you're free." After we hung up, I sat alone in that glass-walled conference room, the city of Seattle humming behind me like a distant ocean. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and for the first time in months, maybe years, tears came. Not sad tears, not guilty ones. Relief, pure physical relief. A weight that had been living in my lungs lifted, and suddenly I could take full breaths again. Every inhale felt like reclaiming my life, inch by inch. A week later, I made a decision, not to call them, not to check in, not to ask if they were okay, just to drive by the house. One last time, it was a Saturday morning. The air was crisp. I drove slowly down the street I had memorized as a child, the cul-de-sac where I rode my bike, the maple tree I used to climb, the crack in the sidewalk where I scraped my knee I parked a block away again. The house looked smaller now, weathered, tired, like it had been held together by denial and duct tape. But what caught my eye wasn't the peeling paint or the unmowed lawn. It was the sign planted in the front yard. For sale, bold red letters, white border, newly hammered into the ground. I didn't go closer. I didn't walk up. I didn't step foot on that grass. I just sat in my car and stared at the house that had cost me nearly everything. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I didn't feel revenge. I felt closure. I felt the final click of a door locking behind me. That chapter was done. I put the car in drive, pulled away from the curb, and didn't look back. Not once. 3 months passed. Spring bloomed in Seattle. Cherry blossoms painted Capitol Hill in soft pink clouds. Tourists snapped pictures on Pike Street. Students lounged in Cal Anderson Park. And my life, this strange, quiet, beautiful new life, slowly unfolded. Small changes first. I bought bright artwork for my living room, splashes of color I never allowed myself to buy because there was always someone else who needed the money more. I bought a new coffee machine, the expensive one I'd wanted for years. I booked a plane ticket. 10 days in Tokyo, in the fall. Just seeing the confirmation email made my stomach tingle. A trip, a real trip, not the imaginary someday I'd been promising myself for years. And then came the big change. One afternoon, my boss called me into his office, a slight balding man with kind eyes and a surprisingly sharp mind. He invited me to sit. "Rachel," he said, "we're expanding the UX team." I nodded, unsure why I was there. "We want you to lead it," he continued. "We're promoting you to director of UX." My breath caught. A raise, a new office, more leadership, more freedom, more respect. When he made the announcement at the small ceremony downtown, I stood in a room with champagne, tiny appetizers, coworkers cheering my name, and an empty chair near the back of the room. I didn't invite them. Not out of spite. The thought simply never occurred to me. They weren't part of this life. They didn't build this success I did. My friends took me out afterwards. We sat in a warm bar with dim lights and ordered fancy cocktails. No one asked me for money. No one guilt-tripped me. No one mocked me. They just celebrated me. When I got home, I took off my heels, placed the award on my counter, and opened the expensive bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. I poured myself a glass, walked to the big window, and stared at the Seattle skyline, the Space Needle glowing golden against the night. I lifted my glass toward my own reflection, a 32-year-old woman who had saved herself, and I whispered to her, "No isn't cruelty, it's self-respect." And for the first time in my entire life, I believed it. 3 months after the house was sold, after the lawyers finished the paperwork, after the bank removed my name from everything they had tied me to like chains, my cousin texted me, "Heard about your parents. They moved across town. Small apartment. Your dad's working at a hardware store now. Your mom's at a grocery store. Alyssa's waitressing at Chili's." I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was shocked, not because I felt satisfaction, but because something inside me finally clicked into place. They weren't dying. They weren't starving. They weren't ruined. They were finally just living life the way life is supposed to be lived. With consequences, with work, with responsibility. For the first time ever, they were doing what adults were meant to do. My father waking up at 5 a.m. to stock shelves, my mother scanning groceries for customers, Alyssa balancing plates and wiping down tables. They weren't tragedies. They weren't victims. They weren't helpless. They were simply people who had finally lost access to the person they'd used as an escape hatch for too long. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. Life had finally reset. One evening, I sat in my apartment scrolling through photos of Tokyo, shrines, neon streets, cherry blossoms, ramen bowls so perfect they looked unreal. I paused on a picture of the Tokyo skyline, tall, quiet, clean, futuristic. I closed my eyes and let myself imagine something I'd never allowed myself to imagine. A future. My future. Not one tied to anyone else, not one weighed down by obligation, not one shaped by guilt. Just mine. I got up from the couch and walked to my kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and looked around my apartment, my space, my air, my quiet. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of lavender from the diffuser, the way the late afternoon sunlight slid across the hardwood floor like honey. I had built this life. I paid for it. I earned it. And for the first time ever, I got to enjoy it. Later that night, I curled up on the couch with a blanket and opened my laptop. I clicked on my banking app out of habit, expecting the familiar sting of disappointment. Instead, I saw my savings account, a real number A safe number, a number going up every month instead of vanishing. I covered my mouth with my hand as emotion rose unexpectedly, not sadness, not anger, but pride. Then I checked my email. Flight confirmation. Hotel reservation, a message from a coworker congratulating me again on my promotion, and something else. A notification that my final credit report update had gone through. The $50,000 loan, gone, wiped, erased like it never happened. My identity, once weaponized against me, was finally my own. Again, I leaned back, closed my eyes, and breathed deeply. A simple inhale. But it felt like the first real breath of my adult life. Weeks passed, Seattle warmed, the city bloomed. I bought myself a pair of hiking boots and started taking long walks in Discovery Park on weekends. I signed up for a pottery class. I went out for sushi with coworkers. I started reading again, books I wanted to read, not ones that offered self-help for burnout or how to set boundaries. I didn't need instruction manuals anymore, I was writing my own. One Friday evening, after work, I stopped by a dog cafe just to look. I didn't adopt, not yet, but I let myself imagine it, a small golden retriever puppy, or a rescue dog with gentle eyes, a companion, a life I finally had room for, and that's when it struck me. This was what my life had been missing all along. Space. Room to breathe, room to grow, room to choose, room to say no, room to exist without being devoured. My phone buzzed once that weekend, a number I didn't recognize at first. Washington area code. Then I saw the name. Alyssa. I stared at it. The old me would have felt my chest tighten, would have panicked, would have answered immediately. The new me? I silenced the call. A minute later, a text appeared. Alyssa. I need to talk. Please. I locked my phone and placed it face down on the table. I didn't read the rest. I didn't respond. I didn't save or delete. I just let it be. That was the moment I realized something important. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can forgive someone, you can wish them well, you can release the anger, but you never owe them access to your life again. 2 months later, I boarded a plane to Tokyo. I sat by the window during takeoff, looking down at the city that had once felt too heavy, too demanding, too suffocating. Now it looked beautiful, expansive, new. When the plane lifted into the air, I felt it again. That lightness I had tasted in small pieces these past months. I wasn't running away, I was finally running toward something. Toward possibility, toward autonomy, toward joy, toward myself. 10 days in Tokyo was everything I wanted and everything I needed. Temples, quiet gardens, neon crossings, warm bowls of ramen, strangers who didn't want anything from me. When I came back home, jet-lagged but content, I stood in front of my apartment window and looked out over Seattle at night. The city lights shimmered like constellations. My entire life was still ahead of me. And it was mine. All mine. I poured a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and whispered into the quiet of my living room, not to anyone, but to myself. My name is Rachel Myers. I'm 32 years old. And for the first time in my life, I belong to me. And God, did it feel good.